Hi everyone. So, if you're anything like me, and I'm willing to bet that you probably are, you have a box in your scrapping area that looks something like this. Now, I probably have about 3 or 4 of these boxes that all look like that, but I just can't seem to ever throw away extra scraps. Um, there's always something useful for them, and I dig in these boxes quite often to look for a little piece if I need something here and there. But after a while, it becomes a lot. And so I found an idea that is a great way to use up a lot of these scraps. So sometimes you've got a lot of bits and pieces, a lot of odds and ends of different colors, or once in a while, you'll come up and I've got a lot of extra cardstock, or 1 or 2 colors, or 3 or 4. And so I'm going to show you something that you can do with these and make a really cool card out of. So what I do is I took these and I cut them down into strips, and you can make them whatever size you want, but I took them and I cut these into 1x2 strips. And so I've got a whole stack of these strips that I can use for a card. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take cardstock, and at the bottom I'm going to take some double-sided tape. You can use glue if you'd like. I like double-sided tape. And I'm going to put a layer down at the bottom like that. So I'm going to take some of these little squares and I'm going to start setting them in on that bottom row. Now I'm going to take and I'm going to set it off the page onto the left, and also off the page onto the bottom. And I'll show you why in just a minute. And so I'm going to try to stick these on fairly neatly, and then I am going to layer the next one right up next to it, and I'm just going to cover that whole bottom row. Now don't worry about the overhang, because I'll show you what to do with that. And so I'll just use in this card a bunch of unique scrap colors on there. And so now I've got my bottom row, so that all overhangs off the bottom. So I'm going to take now another row of my double stick tape. I'm going to lay that down. Depending on how much you want this to show, lay that down across there, and then you can also since I made these 1x2s, I can stick another layer up there so they stick extra well. And so now for the second layer, and it depends on what you want to do. You can do anything you like, but I'm going to use some decorative scissors, and I'm just going to go through and cut the edge of that off. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stagger my pattern. So I'm going to start this one way off the page so that it kind of lines up with that one there. And so I'm going to take that, bring that down over my tape, and I'm going to take the next one and trim the ends of that. And again, I'm going to do the same kind of pattern, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to stagger that up and down as well. So you're going to kind of repeat the process. So you're going to end up with something like this. And then your next row is going to do the same thing. And what you can do is stagger that pattern again. And again, you're going to stay off the page, but this one I can kind of put right up on the edge to keep with the pattern that I have. And it's up to you if you've got enough pieces to make every one unique. that's fine. Or you can make a pattern with all the same colors or different colors. You don't have to stagger them, you can kind of put them all in rows, but what you're creating is a nice little shingle pattern, like the shingles on your roof. And so what you're gonna do, once you get those on there, you can take your mat and you're gonna flip this over, and you're just gonna go through and trim with your X-Acto knife or your scissors, nice and tight. You're gonna trim those extra edges off, because you don't want those to show. So I'm just gonna take and cut those off, throw those away, because those I'm not gonna use anymore. And so this gives you a nice clean edge. So that looks nice and neat now. And then what you can do, depending on which card you want to make, is you can take some of these 3D foam dots. You can actually go in, you can kind of lift up the edges and create, if I can get it, you can lift up the edges and make those stick out a little bit and make them poof, and give them a little extra dimension so that they kind of stand out a little bit more. Oops. Of course you gotta hide it under there. That would help. But that way they kind of look like the shingles on your roof a little bit more. Give it a little extra dimension. So that's another neat little trick that you can do with that. So in the end, when you take a lot of the same colors like I had there, you can kind of come up with a cool shingle card there. On this one I took a little line of the tape there, like a shiny tape, and put that down on the bottom row, and I just curved the edges of each one of these. Put a nice layer on there. Or with that multicolored card, you can come up with something really fun like this. I thought this was awesome use of those gnomes. Those gnome stamps are so cool. And so I just took that same pattern with all different kinds of scrap paper on there, and then these were actually made of scrap paper as well. So this entire card outside of the cardstock was made entirely out of scrap papers. So there's something fun you can do and a nice way to use up all those papers that you got. Thanks.